Potioncraft is first and foremost an alchemy simulator. With meticulous craftsmanship, Nice Play Games have built a virtual alchemy system that is algebraic, geometric, playful, and deliciously material. The game's also got light farming elements, light decorating elements, and light shopkeeping elements, but Potioncraft is first and foremost an alchemy simulator. It doesn't need to be more than that. And yet, this particular game has a funny way of beckoning me to explore corners of its virtual world that simply don't exist. The narrative setup for Potioncraft is succinct and utilitarian. You're an alchemist who stumbles upon an abandoned alchemy shop, and within moments you're stooped over a bubbling cauldron that's yours in fact, if not by title. Just as the cauldron, the mortar, and the pestle sit squarely at the center of your new home, the alchemical process is the center of Potioncraft, its richest and best developed subsystem. You can sell your potions for gold, but the reason you want gold is to purchase new ingredients. You can tend your magical garden, but everything you grow and harvest is some kind of reagent. All of Potioncraft's design flows out from and back into the cauldron, the beating heart of the game. The same way the game's visuals draw inspiration from medieval European manuscripts, Potioncraft's alchemy evokes a distinctly medieval and European kind of experimental magic, experimentation that preceded the discipline of chemistry. The Aristotelian elements of fire, earth, water, and air are transposed into cardinal directions on a kind of magical map, and every magical ingredient you toss into your cauldron manifests as a vector on that map. Potent fire reagents push you to the west, air ingredients to the north. Rare and unique ingredients trace unusual paths. They might help you weave your way out of a hazardous spot on the map, or land with precision on a desired magical effect, of which there are many. And precision is the key to potency, with only a tiny splash of oil separating a masterwork potion from a cheap derivative. In an inspired bit of game design, you don't directly manipulate your position on the magical map, like moving an avatar with the arrow keys. Instead, you click and drag your tools through physical space. Grinding up ingredients in the mortar extends the path of a particular ingredient. Swinging the ladle left and right stirs the brew and moves you along the path. Pumping the bellows heats the cauldron and locks in magical effects. All of these tangible physical objects exist underneath the magical map, manipulating it from across a layer of abstraction. While the magical process is conceptual and metaphorical, the magical tools are concrete and substantial. It's a great way of making something as heady as magic feel intuitive. When I first started working with crystal ingredients, I noticed that they didn't grind down under my pestle. I puzzled for a moment, then instinctively started smashing the pestle rather than grinding, which broke the crystal down into little bits. Details like that one, details which reflect the player's real-world intuitions, make the world of Potioncraft feel more real, more like an actual place. And so I nestled deeper into this virtual world, more invested and more curious. Exploring the magical map was so much fun that I naturally wanted to explore along different axes too. This abandoned old shop, who used to own it? These customers I see every day, what are their stories? The world beyond my little shop, what is it like? Who rules it? Who threatens it? Who are the neighbors? But those aren't questions the game lets you ask. In her landmark book, Hamlet on the Holodeck, game studies legend Janet Murray described an uncanny yearning on board a simulated starship.
The movement is so fluid, the visuals have such authority, and the representation is so complete that our visit to the Enterprise has a magical quality. It is as if we are aboard the real starship. But after we check out all the key places, the captain's ready room, the bridge, the lounge area on 10 forward, the quarters of all the crew members, the visit to the Enterprise loses its immersive hold because nothing is happening there. In a digital environment, we do not want to use a spaceship as a databank. The more we feel that we are actually there, the more we want to fly off on it and have adventures. Janet Murray. Hamlet on the Holodeck.
Potioncraft made me feel actually there in the potion shop, and it gave me similar yearnings. Every day brought new customers with new requests, and every new request offered a tantalizing glimpse into a new story. a noble begging to relax, a warrior looking for protection from frost. But your engagement with most customers is narrow and limited. Your primary interaction is offering potions to your customers, which they either accept or refuse. Because the customers are always perfectly aware of your potion's effects, you can't engage with a customer's story through subterfuge. When a seedy creep comes in looking for a love potion, you might want to mix up a potion of strength, wrath, and stone skin instead and slap a heart label on it, granting the creep's would-be victim superhuman powers of self-defense. It's a solution that feels as real-world intuitive as crushing the crystal with your Mortar and Pestle. But the game won't let you do it. The creep will always know what's in the bottle. You can help him or send him home, and that's about it. That haggling mechanic is nominally a kind of conversation, but a superficial one that glides across the surface of broad subject matter and ends with a business transaction. You're not getting to know a neighbor's life story, you're awkwardly chatting about the weather while your cashier rings you up. You can inquire a little bit into the lives and goals of a few fellow merchants who swing by from time to time, but your inquiries are limited in light, recipes, and travel tips. With all this superficial conversation, I felt profoundly out of sync with my faceless avatar, the fantasy alchemist version of myself. While real me was extremely curious about everyone and everything, alchemist me felt like a misanthropic hermit in a rush to close out his business deals and get back to his cauldron. The alchemist's focus was the game's focus, and so, like the game, he was always in a big hurry to get rid of the people and get back to the potions. There are other ways to build shopkeeping games, structures that enable different kinds of storytelling. The classic Dojin game Recettear is an obvious point of reference, and a pioneer of the genre with an approach vastly different from potioncraft. The simplest difference, and maybe the most impactful one, is that plucky Recette leaves the shop. She hangs out in the tavern, hunts for candy in the church, and bumps into her customers out in the wild. She can even join a few of those customers on adventures. Spending so much time outside the shop gives the game organic opportunities to flesh out its setting and its characters, and those characters are glomp-coded. Even when they glower, they squee. There may not be any computers in Recettear, but I can guarantee you that the cast are all posting constantly on Keenspot fan forums in 2006.
When we cringe at someone who belongs to our identity group, we don't just feel vicarious embarrassment, we feel embarrassment.
It's a distinct flavor of weebed up dialogue, one that's more than a little astringent to my palate here in 2025. To a meaningful extent, the slice-of-life anime rhythms of Recettear impair its simulation of shopkeeping. The in-game economy is distractingly incoherent. The guildmaster will sell you a spear for 100 gold in the morning, then show up to your shop and buy it for 500 gold in the evening, demonstrating the symptoms of a severe brain injury. You can't brew up your own stock, and the items you can acquire adventuring are mostly worthless. So buying and selling feel oddly partitioned off from everything else. The gameplay mechanics of Recettear didn't suck me into its imagined world like potioncraft did, and so I yearned less fervently to know more. Recettear satisfied my mild curiosity, while potioncraft kindled a much more intense curiosity that it left unsatisfied. A more recent-ish point of comparison would be Valhalla, a game I really cherish, and one generically similar to the Red Strings Club, itself one of the major inspirations for potioncraft. It would be very strange for potioncraft to feel just like Valhalla, because the lengthy and intimate conversations that suit a small quiet bar off the beaten track would feel all wrong in a medieval retail environment. Still, there are tools in Valhalla's toolbox that I sorely missed in potioncraft. It's not like the patrons of Valhalla are constantly lore dumping. The writing of that game provides the player with economical little windows into the world outside the bar. When characters casually chat about whether a loud bang was a backfiring car or a gunshot, the text might be light and breezy, but the subtext is rich. These are people well acquainted with the sounds of gunfire, characters familiar enough with random acts of violence that the prospect of a nearby gunshot is barely more concerning than the prospect of rain. When you're hungry to learn more about a virtual world, this kind of world building through implication can feel extremely satisfying. The king of storytelling in customer service games is almost certainly Papers, Please. A distinct and coherent world blossoms out of that game's well-crafted mechanics. Son and wife tremble in the apartment you can't heat because you didn't process enough immigrants to earn a living wage. Lifelong lovers reunite at the discretion of your stamp of approval on a passport. The wordless way that so many immigrants shuffle off after you reject their entry conveys a deep weariness, an existential fatigue that has sapped any energy that might have fueled rage or discontent. When an immigrant cussed me out for turning him away, I felt relief. The spark of life hasn't yet been fully extinguished. Someone is still alive out there. Investing the way customers move and react with narrative weight, using scarcity to force the player into morally ambiguous circumstances. Those are also tools in the customer service game toolbox. The customers in Potioncraft glide in and out, a frictionless and vague sort of movement worlds apart from the tactile specificity of the Mortar and the Pestle. Your alchemist doesn't pay for food or warmth or basic supplies, so the ethical quandaries of catering to evil customers are essentially cosmetic. Is this a good guy playthrough or a bad guy playthrough? Should I blow up Megaton just for fun? The absence of all these features I'm describing can't really be considered a complaint. If anything, their want is a compliment. Since he was a child, Mikhail Chuprikov wanted to make a video game version of alchemy, and Potioncraft is one of the most thoughtfully designed video game versions of alchemy I've ever played, one of the most rewarding and engaging by far. It doesn't need to be more than that, but unfair as it may be, I did want it to be more than that. I imagine that some people might tell me that the disinterest and superficiality of the customer service in Potioncraft are, in a way, successful. That superficiality defines the customer-cashier interaction in the real world, and Potioncraft is meaningfully recreating that real interaction in virtual space. It's an interesting point, but I can't say I agree. I've been working at a local grocery store for a little while, and my experiences on the checkout line don't feel uniformly superficial. Sure, sometimes they are. There are quick wordless exchanges, rote conversations about weather, and infinite variations of, I didn't mean to buy so much food, I only came here for milk. But that's not all there is. You connect with some customers over extremely niche graphic tees, over identical tastes in vegan yogurt, over hailstorms that grate your city like a slab of parmesan. You intervene when little kids have meltdowns. You help older folks who get locked out of their cars. And I've only been working there a little while. Some of my older coworkers seem to know every single customer that comes through their checkout line by name. You're working in a hub for the entire community, and if you keep your eyes open, you end up learning a lot about that community. Because Potioncraft does so many things so wonderfully, I desperately wanted to learn much more about the community around my potion shop. But that's not the game that Potioncraft wants to be. Like I said, a lot of those observations about Potioncraft aren't really complaints, but this observation is. At about 15 minutes of length, the soundtrack of Potioncraft is haiku brief, and it loops. For me, the looping is a real problem. A brief soundtrack for a longer game needs to be used economically, and economy requires careful and specific placement. The original Final Fantasy stretched 9 minutes of beautiful bleeps across 18 hours of play, but each 8-bit tune was tailored to the particular moments that they underscored. It's the reason why something like this scratches nails across the chalkboard of my soul. Jesus, it's unethical. More recently, Stardew Valley is a game you can play for very, very large amounts of time with a proportionally short soundtrack. Much of the music, like much of the game, is designed around the 4 seasons, with a few different songs per season playing when you step out onto your farm in the morning. I'll let you guess which season this song is for. And then when the song is done, if you're still working on your farm, you just work without music for a little while. The songs don't loop, they set the tone for the day like the first rush of seasonal air against your bare skin, and then they evaporate. But the soundtrack for Potion Craft loops ceaselessly. There isn't a tune that's tailored to haggling, or a tune that's tailored to your more complex machinery. There are just 6 looping songs. The feeling you get is that you found one random mix CD left behind by the former Alchemist, and it's stuck, jammed into the CD tray. And sure, you can turn the music off, but, the music's good. It's bardcore, and it's jaunty, and I like it. But the tracks aren't tailored to specific situations, aren't broken up by well-timed moments of quiet and calm, and so I end up muting music that I otherwise enjoy quite a bit. That said, I like Potion Craft way too much to land my comments on a sour note, so here's where I'll land instead. The ingredient design of Potion Craft is so much fun. You've got some ingredients, like the Rudi Terraria, which communicate their elemental orientation at a glance. Other ingredients, like the deeply unsettling hairy banana, are clever setups paid off by amusing alchemical paths, game mechanics communicated through the language of comedy, of setups and punchlines. There are lots of ingredients that I crave to taste for myself, whether or not they're poisonous, like the mysterious ice fruit and the speckled mageberry. Designs like the moss shroom and the foggy parasol both scan immediately as mushrooms, despite looking almost nothing alike. The generation of so many diverse and distinct reagents, with no 2 reagents looking like reskins or riffs on the same idea, is a feat that really shouldn't go unremarked upon. Even just looking at them now, I get the hankering to smush them.